There is a version of your life that other people see. They see someone who is holding it together. They see someone who shows up, who manages, who carries the weight without making a scene. They see the composed face, the measured words, the way you navigate difficult rooms without letting anyone know how much it cost you to walk in. From the outside, your life looks functional. It looks like someone who has figured out how to keep moving. But you know what it actually feels like from the inside. You know the weight that sits behind your eyes when you wake up before the alarm and lie there in the quiet, replaying things that were said about you, things that were done to you, things that were taken from you by people who smiled while they did it. You know the specific ache of being misread by the very people who were supposed to know you best. You know what it feels like to be accused of something you did not do, to be painted as the villain in a story you did not write, to watch people believe a version of you that has nothing to do with who you actually are. And somewhere beneath all of that, beneath the composure and the management and the forward motion, there is a part of you that has been quietly asking one question for a very long time. Did anyone see what they did to me? Beloved and chosen one, I need you to hear this before anything else. Heaven saw it, every single moment of it, every word that was spoken against you in rooms you were not in, every opportunity that was quietly redirected away from you because someone decided you were a threat. Every relationship that was poisoned before it could grow. Every time your name was used carelessly, unfairly, with an agenda that had nothing to do with truth, God did not look away. God did not miss it. And what I need you to understand right now, in this moment, is that what you are feeling is not paranoia. It is not bitterness. It is not weakness. What you are feeling is the accurate perception of a soul that has been genuinely wronged and the deep knowing that something is about to shift. You are a chosen one. And I want to be specific about what that means for the person sitting inside this moment. Because being chosen is not about being perfect. It is not about having everything together. It is not about never struggling or never hurting. Being chosen means that you carry inside you that the enemy recognized before you did. It means that you were targeted not because you are weak, but because you are significant. The attacks on your name, your character, your relationships, your opportunities, those were not random. Chosen ones are not attacked randomly. They are attacked intentionally by forces both human and spiritual that understand what you are capable of far better than you currently believe about yourself. There are specific signs that mark a person walking in this particular season. And I want you to listen carefully because these signs are not generic. They are precise. They describe a specific kind of soul in a specific kind of moment. The first sign is this. You have recently experienced a betrayal or an attack that came from a direction you did not expect, from someone close, from a community you trusted, from an institution you believed in. And the wound it left is not just emotional. It has made you question your own discernment. You have been asking yourself how you did not see it coming. And that question has done almost as much damage as the betrayal itself. The second sign is that you have been experiencing a kind of spiritual restlessness that you cannot fully explain. You feel drawn to something, pulled toward a purpose that has not yet fully revealed itself. But the pull is strong enough that ordinary life has started to feel insufficient. The things that used to satisfy you no longer do. The distractions that used to work no longer quiet the deeper question. You feel like you are standing in a hallway between two rooms, and the room you came from no longer fits, but the room ahead has not yet opened its door. The third sign is that in recent weeks or months, you have had either vivid and unusual dreams or a complete absence of dreams, which itself has felt significant. Something in your inner world is being reorganized. Something in the unseen realm is in motion around your life in a way that your waking cannot quite process. So it is happening in the deep places instead. The fourth sign is that you have been carrying a very specific anger. Not the general frustration of a difficult life, a specific focused anger at the injustice of what was done to you, and you have been ashamed of that anger or afraid of it because it does not seem spiritual enough. You have tried to release it, tried to forgive your way past it, tried to pray it into calm, but it keeps returning because God put it there, because that anger is not yours to dissolve. It is heaven's signal that what was done to you was genuinely wrong, and God is not asking you to pretend otherwise. The fifth sign is that you are still here. After everything that was done to dismantle you, after the attacks on your name, the losses, the disappointments, the seasons of complete invisibility, you are still showing up. You are still listening. You are still reaching towards something greater than the pain. That is not stubbornness. That is not just human resilience. That is the mark of a soul that cannot be finished by ordinary opposition, because it was made for something that ordinary opposition cannot comprehend. You are an earth angel. You are part of a divine plan that was written before the people who hurt you ever had your name in their mouths. And I need you to understand that heaven did not gather this moment casually. Whatever path brought you to this sedge today, whatever series of decisions and detours and longings led you here, heaven has been orchestrating this arrival. The people who attacked you thought they were ending something, but they were only positioning you. What they meant to be, your burial became your preparation. And the God who watched every moment of what was done to your name is not a passive observer. He is a defender. He is a vindicator. And he is angry on your behalf. Heaven did not say soon. Heaven said now. Something happened to you that you have not been able to fully put into words. Not because the words do not exist, but because every time you have tried to explain it, the explanation has come out smaller than the actual experience. You say, it was a difficult season, and people nod, but what you actually mean is that there were nights when the weight of what was done to you sat so heavily on your chest that breathing felt like an act of resistance. You say, some people let me down, and people offer sympathy, but what you actually mean is that someone who knew your vulnerabilities, someone who had access to the private rooms of your trust, used what they knew to build a case against you. And they were believed, and you were not. And that specific pain, the pain of being misrepresented by someone who knew better, is a kind of wound that does not heal on the surface. It goes down into the foundation of how you see yourself, how you trust, how you move through rooms full of people whose faces you can no longer read the way you used to. I want to name 4 things today. 4 signs that belong to this specific season, the season you are walking through right now. Not because naming them will fix them, but because there is something that happens in the soul when someone finally says out loud what you have only been able to feel in the dark. There is a release that comes not from resolution, but from recognition. So let me recognize you. The first sign is this. There has been a sudden wave of sadness about the past that arrived without warning. Not grief over a specific new loss, but a grief that reaches backward. A mourning for the version of yourself that existed before the attack, before the betrayal, before the season that changed how you see people. You have found yourself thinking about who you were before you learned to guard yourself this way. You remember being more open, more trusting, more willing to give people the benefit of the doubt without bracing for impact. And you miss that person. You grieve them quietly, in small moments when no one is watching. Because the wound did not just take something from your present. It reached back and changed how your past feels to remember. The second sign is that familiar places and familiar people have begun to feel heavy and strange. The environments that once felt like home, whether that is a community, a workplace, a friendship circle, a church, a family gathering, now carry a weight they did not used to carry. You walk into rooms that should feel comfortable and find yourself scanning for exits. You sit beside people who should feel safe and find yourself measuring your words before you speak them. This is not you becoming cold. This is not you becoming bitter. This is the intelligent response of a soul that learned, through real experience, that not every familiar thing is safe. The strangeness you feel in those places is your spirit telling you the truth about them. The third sign is a recurring image or dream about a door that has not yet opened. It comes in different forms for different people. Sometimes it is a literal dream about standing in front of a door. Sometimes it is a waking image that arrives during quiet moments. The sense of being on the threshold of something significant without being able to cross into it yet. Sometimes it is simply the persistent feeling that something is about to happen. Something large and real and long awaited, but the moment of arrival has not yet come. That image, that recurring sense of the unopened door, is not anxiety. It is prophetic perception. Your spirit is seeing something your mind has not yet received permission to believe. The fourth sign is that the same message keeps finding you, in different forms, through different sources, in different voices, but carrying the same essential truth. You hear it in a song that comes on unexpectedly. You read it in a line from a book you picked up without knowing why. A stranger says something that lands in your chest like it was written for you. You come across content like this one, and something in you goes still before you even understand why. When the same message keeps arriving through different channels, that is not coincidence. That is a coordinated delivery. Heaven uses multiple carriers to make sure the message reaches the person it was sent to. Now let me speak to the specific pains, not the general category of pain, but the specific texture of what this season has cost you. The insomnia that visits at 2 and 3 in the morning, not because your mind is anxious about the future, but because it keeps returning to the injustice of the past, replaying conversations, reconstructing timelines, asking what you could have done differently, even though the honest answer is that you could not have done anything differently because the foe. Attack was not about your behavior. It was about your existence, about what you carry, about what you represent to people who feel threatened by light they cannot control. The loneliness that sits beside the insomnia, not the loneliness of being without people, because many of you are surrounded by people, but the loneliness of being unseen by them. The loneliness of knowing that the people in your life, even the ones who love you, cannot fully see what is happening inside you, cannot fully hold the complexity of what you are carrying. You have learned to perform fine because the alternative, the full disclosure of what this season has actually been, is more than most people are equipped to receive, so you carry it mostly alone, and the carrying has been heavy. The feeling of being wronged without recourse, of watching the person or the people who attacked your name continue to move through the world with their reputation intact, while you rebuild yours quietly, without fanfare, without an audience, of knowing that what they'd said about you is still out there somewhere, still living in the minds of people who heard it before you had the chance to respond. There is a particular helplessness in that, a particular grief in knowing that truth moves slower than rumor, that light takes longer to spread than shadow. You have felt that helplessness, and you have felt ashamed of feeling it, because you were told that people of faith do not hold on to things like this. But I want you to know that God is not asking you to hold on to it. God is asking you to hand it to Him. And there is a profound difference between those two things. The feeling of being misunderstood by people who should have known you better. People who had enough information about your character to choose interpretation over assumption, and chose assumption anyway. That particular wound cuts differently because it is not about strangers. Strangers misreading you is painful but expected. When people who were supposed to know you, who had years and access and evidence of who you actually are, still chose to believe the worst interpretation available, that is a wound that goes into the place where trust is stored. And rebuilding that place takes time that cannot be rushed. Now I want to redefine something for you, because the word waiting has been used against you in this season. Someone, somewhere, at some point, handed you a version of waiting that felt like punishment. As if the delay in your life, the slowness of the breakthrough, the silence from heaven in the moments when you most needed noise, was evidence that something was wrong with you, that you had not prayed enough, believed enough, done enough, been enough. And you carried that interpretation because there was no other one offered to you. But waiting is not punishment. Waiting is positioning. There is a critical difference between being ignored and being placed. When something is being ignored, it is because it has been assessed and found insufficient. When something is being placed, it is because the location matters and the timing is not yet right. You have not been ignored by heaven. You have been placed by heaven. Every delay in your story has been a placement, not a dismissal. Every door that did not open was not a rejection of your worth. It was a rerouting toward a destination that required a different entrance. You are not someone who has been overlooked by God. You are someone who is being positioned by God. And those two experiences can feel identical from the inside. That is why the enemy uses delay as a weapon, because he knows that without the right interpretation, positioning feels exactly like abandonment. But you are not abandoned. You are protected. You are being held in a space that looks like stillness from the outside, but is actually preparation on the inside. The people who attacked you thought they were removing you from the story, but they were only changing your location within it. And your new location is closer to the breakthrough than your old one was. If any of this has found you today, if something in these words has landed in that quiet place inside you that does not lie, I want you to type the words "I see it" in the comments right now. Not for me, for yourself. Because naming what you recognize is the first act of receiving it. Let those 3 words be your declaration that you are no longer going to let the attack define the season, that you are ready to let heaven's interpretation of your story replace the one your enemies wrote. And if this message has been a lifeline for you today, if it has said something that you have needed to hear and have not been able to find anywhere else, I want to gently ask you to consider supporting this work. There is a way to give, a donate button or a link available for those who feel led. Not because this message has a price, it does not, but because creating this content, researching it, crafting it, making sure it reaches the person who needs it at the moment they need it, takes real time and real resources. When you give, you are not just supporting a channel. You are becoming part of the delivery system. You are helping make sure that another chosen one, sitting somewhere in their own version of 2 in the morning, finds a message that names what they are carrying. If that feels right to you, even a small amount is an act of partnership in something much larger than either of us can see from here. If you can like this video and share it with one person, you are already part of that mission. If you are not yet subscribed, this is the moment. Because what is coming in the rest of this message is not something you want to miss. And what is coming in your life is not something you want to face without the right language to understand it. You have been carrying something for a long time without a place to set it down. And one of the cruelest things about this particular season, the season of unjust attack, of watching your name used carelessly by people who should have protected it, is that it rarely comes with instructions. No one hands you a map when your character is being questioned. No one gives you a protocol when trust has been broken at the root. You are simply expected to endure it, to process it quietly, to emerge from it gracefully, and to do all of that without any clear direction about what to actually do with your hands while it is happening. So today, I want to give you something to do. Not a philosophy, not a concept. Something concrete. Something you can begin today, in the next 7 minutes, that will start to shift the internal environment that the attacks have been living in. Before I give you the steps, I want to say something important about why practice matters in a season like this. When something unjust happens to you, when your name is attacked, when your character is misrepresented, when trust is broken by someone who knew better, your nervous system responds in a very specific way. It goes into a state of alert. It begins scanning the environment for the next threat. It starts treating uncertainty as danger, because in the season of attack, uncertainty often was danger. And this is not a spiritual failure. This is biology doing exactly what it was designed to do. Your body is trying to protect you. But the problem is that this state of alert, if it is never interrupted, begins to become the baseline. You stop experiencing it as a response to a specific threat and start experiencing it as the permanent texture of your life. You become someone who is always waiting for the next attack, always half-braced, always just slightly removed from full presence, because full presence feels too vulnerable. The practice I am going to give you today is designed to interrupt that pattern, not to eliminate the memory of what was done to you, not to pretend the wound was not real, but to create a space in your internal world where something other than the attack is allowed to exist, where something other than the defense posture is allowed to breathe. And as that space opens, what moves into it is not manufactured positivity or forced forgiveness. What moves into it is clarity. The specific kind of clarity that has been waiting for the noise of the attack to quiet. Enough for you to hear it. This practice has a name. I am calling it the 3-step return. It is not complicated. It does not require a special location or a special time of day. It does not require previous experience with meditation or prayer or any particular spiritual tradition. It requires only you, 3 minutes of your attention for the first 2 steps, and then 7 minutes of silence for the third. That is the complete investment, 10 minutes total. And I want to walk you through each step carefully, because the way you enter each step matters as much as the step itself. Step 1 is this. Before you do anything else, before you breathe in any particular way or say any particular words, I want you to remember something that you are grateful for that did not happen. Not something good that occurred, something bad that was avoided, something painful that could have happened and did not. Because when you have been walking through a season of attack, your gratitude vocabulary tends to narrow. You become focused on what was taken, what was damaged, what was lost, and that focus is valid. Those losses are real. But there is an entire category of provision that exists in the form of protection rather than blessing. And in this season, that category has been active on your behalf more than you realize. Think about it honestly for a moment. The attack on your name could have gone further than it did. There were people in the room when the accusations were being made who had the power to amplify them, and they did not. There were opportunities for the damage to spread in directions it did not go. There were moments when you could have made a decision in the heat of your pain that would have cost you more than the original wound, and something held you back. There were nights when the weight was so heavy that you were not sure you could continue carrying it, and yet morning came, and you were still standing. That is not luck. That is a specific, targeted protection being exercised over your life by a God who has been monitoring this situation with far more attention than you have been aware of. So in step 1, I want you to identify one thing, just one, that did not happen, one disaster that was averted, one escalation that was contained, one loss that was threatened but did not materialize, and I want you to hold it, not analyze it, not build a theology around it. Just hold it in your awareness and let it be evidence. Evidence that you have not been navigating this season alone. Evidence that something has been working on your behalf in the background of your story, in the spaces between the visible events, in the moments you were not watching. That recognition, that moment of seeing the protection behind the pain, begins to shift the frequency of your internal environment. It begins to create the first small opening through which something new can enter. Step 2 is a declaration, a spoken statement. And I want you to understand why speaking matters here, because it is not a performance, and it is not a ritual for its own sake. When you speak something out loud, you engage a different part of your brain than when you think it. The act of forming words with your mouth and hearing them with your ears creates a loop that anchors the statement in your nervous system in a way that silent thought alone cannot accomplish. There is neurological evidence for this, and there is also ancient wisdom for this. Every major spiritual tradition in human history has understood that spoken words carry a weight that internal thought does not. This is not coincidence. This is design. The declaration I want you to speak is this, and I want you to say it slowly, with full awareness of every word, not rushing to get through it, but allowing each phrase to land before moving to the next. Say this out loud, in whatever private space you have available to you right now. Say, what was meant to bury me has only buried the version of me that was too small for what is coming. I am not behind. I am not forgotten. I am not defined by what was done to my name. I am held by the one who knows my name in full, and what heaven has appointed for my life, no human opposition can cancel. This is my time, not the time I planned, not the time I expected, the time that was always mine. Say those words. Mean them as much as you can, even if you cannot mean them completely yet, because the declaration is not a report on your current emotional state. It is a statement of truth that your emotional state is in the process of catching up to. You are not lying when you say it through tears. You are not being dishonest when you say it while still feeling the weight of the wound. You are simply speaking the destination before the journey is finished. And that is precisely what a declaration is for. Now, step 3. This is the step that ties everything together. And it is also the step that opens the door to something I am going to explain more fully a little later in this message. Step 3 is 7 minutes of silence. Not the silence of trying to think of nothing, because that is a frustrating and largely impossible task for a human mind that has been through what yours has been through. Not the silence of forced calm, which is just suppression wearing a spiritual costume. This is a different kind of silence. This is the silence of active listening. The silence of a person who has just made a declaration and is now making space to receive the response. Here is how to do it. After you finish the declaration in step 2, I want you to set a timer for 7 minutes. Then I want you to close your eyes, or soften your gaze if closing them feels uncomfortable, and I want you to breathe. Not in any special pattern. Just breathe the way you breathe, and I want you to do one thing during those 7 minutes. I want you to release the need to solve anything, not permanently, just for 7 minutes. The problems will still be there when the timer ends. The injustices will still be real. The wounds will still need tending. But for 7 minutes, I want you to practice the radical act of not being in charge of the resolution, of letting the defense of your name be someone else's assignment, of allowing yourself to exist for just 7 minutes in the posture of a person who is protected rather than a person who is perpetually on guard. What happens in those 7 minutes is different for different people. Some people experience a profound stillness that they have not felt in months. Some people find that tears come without warning, not tears of grief, but tears of release, the kind that happen when a burden is set down rather than picked up. Some people receive images or impressions that carry meaning they cannot immediately explain, but that feel significant in a way that they return to later. Some people simply feel their shoulders drop by half an inch, their jaw unclench slightly, their breath go a little deeper, and that is enough. Because the body keeping score of the attack means the body also keeps score of the release. Every moment of genuine rest that you give your nervous system is a moment that the attack loses ground. I want you to do this practice today, not next week, not when things calm down. Today, because one of the lies that this season tells is that the practice of restoration belongs to a future version of you who is less wounded than you currently are. That you have to be healed before you can begin healing. But that is not how it works. The practice is not the reward at the end of the season. The practice is what moves you through the season. It is the mechanism, not the trophy. There is something about those 7 minutes, specifically 7, that I am going to return to later in this message, because there is a layer of science underneath this practice that I think you need to hear. Research into the way the brain processes experience, into the specific frequencies that the human mind enters during deep rest, into the documented effects of sound and silence on cognitive and emotional states. Reveals something that connects what you have just been given as a spiritual practice to something measurable and reproducible in a laboratory. And that connection matters because you deserve to know that what heaven designed for your restoration is not at odds with what science has discovered about how restoration actually works. They are pointing at the same truth from different directions, but before I go there, I want to sit for one more moment with where you are right now. Because you did something today. You stayed. You showed up for a message that required you to feel things you have been working hard not to feel. You let someone speak into a place that has been bruised. And that is not a small thing. That is the act of someone who has not given up. That is the act of someone whose spirit is still reaching. Still open, still willing to receive even in the middle of a season that has given it every reason to close. That reaching is not weakness. It is the most specific kind of strength. It is the strength of the chosen. And what is coming next in this message was written for that strength. There is something that the researchers did not expect to find. When the studies on high-performing individuals began, the assumption was that what separated them from everyone else would be found in their habits, their discipline, their environment, their education, their access to resources. Those were the variables the scientists were measuring. But what kept showing up in the data, across different studies, across different populations, across different cultural and socioeconomic backgrounds, was something that none of the initial research designs had been built to detect. It was a frequency. a specific, measurable pattern of electrical activity in the brain that appeared consistently in people who demonstrated what researchers began calling breakthrough cognition. The ability to solve problems that others could not solve. The ability to perceive connections that others could not see. The ability to recover from setbacks with a speed and a creativity that defied ordinary expectation. And when they looked more closely at that frequency, they found something that stopped several of them in the middle of their work. It was the same frequency that appears in children, not children in general. Children in the specific state of deep, absorbed, imaginative play. The state where a child is so fully inside their own world that time disappears and the external environment becomes irrelevant. Scientists have a name for that state. They call it theta, and in adults, that state is extraordinarily rare. Because the process of growing up, of learning to navigate social complexity, of absorbing criticism and failure, and the measured responses of a world that does not reward unguarded openness, systematically trains the adult brain away from theta. By the time most people reach adulthood, the theta frequency is largely inaccessible during waking hours. It appears during the transition between sleep and waking, in the moments just before full consciousness arrives. It appears in deep meditation after years of dedicated practice. And it appears reliably and strongly in people who carry what the researchers began to call, with increasing seriousness, the gamma signature. Gamma is the frequency of integration, where theta is associated with creativity, intuition, deep learning, and the kind of open receptivity that children carry naturally. Gamma is associated with something different. Gamma is the frequency of the moment when everything comes together, when the insight arrives, when the solution that has been forming below the level of conscious awareness suddenly breaks the surface and becomes visible. Researchers sometimes call these moments eureka moments. Athletes call them flow states. Mystics call them moments of illumination. But whatever language you use to describe them, the neurological signature is the same. Gamma, high frequency, high amplitude, present across multiple regions of the brain, simultaneously, as if the entire organ is singing in the same key at the same moment. And here is what I need you to hear, chosen one, because this is the bridge between the spiritual reality of who you are and the measurable science of how your brain is designed to operate. The people who carry a divine assignment, the people who have been set apart for a purpose that is larger than ordinary life, are not just spiritually different. They are neurologically different. The frequency that heaven placed inside your design is the same frequency that researchers have been documenting in laboratories for decades. You were not built for average cognition. You were built for breakthrough cognition, and the season of attack that you have been walking through, the season that was designed to diminish you, has actually, paradoxically, been creating the conditions under which your brain is most ready to access the frequency it was always meant to operate in. The man who brought this connection into clear focus for tens of thousands of people is a neuroscientist named Dr. James Rivers. Dr. Rivers spent more than 30 years studying the relationship between brainwave frequency and human potential. His research has been affiliated with some of the most rigorous scientific institutions in the world, including work connected to research programs at MIT, and his collaboration with studies undertaken in partnership with NASA on the cognitive performance of individuals under extreme conditions. What NASA wanted to understand was how certain individuals maintained clarity, creativity, and effective decision-making in environments of high stress and sustained pressure. What Dr. Rivers discovered in the course of that research was that the individuals who performed best under those conditions were not the ones with the highest baseline intelligence scores. They were the ones whose brains retained access to theta during stress and whose theta could rapidly transition into gamma when a breakthrough was required. In other words, the most resilient, most creative, most effective human minds under pressure were not the ones that stress did not affect. They were the ones that had learned, whether through training or through something more innate, to access a specific sequence of brainwave states, even when the external environment was actively working against them. And Dr. Rivers spent the subsequent years of his career trying to understand whether that access could be taught. Whether someone whose brain had been trained away from theta by years of stress, by seasons of attack and defense and guardedness, could be guided back into that frequency deliberately, reliably, and without requiring years of meditation practice to get there. The answer, after thousands of hours of research and testing, was yes. And the mechanism through which it works is called brainwave entrainment. The principle behind brainwave entrainment is both ancient and scientifically documented. It is based on a property of the human brain that has been studied under well over a century, which is that the brain has a natural tendency to synchronize its own electrical activity with rhythmic external stimuli. When the brain is exposed to a specific frequency of sound, delivered in a specific way, it does not simply hear the sound. It begins to match it. The electrical activity of the brain begins to shift toward the frequency being introduced. The brain literally tunes itself to the signal it receives. Dr. Rivers used this principle to develop an audio program built on two specific technologies. The first is binaural beats, which work by delivering slightly different tones to each ear simultaneously, creating a perceived frequency in the brain that corresponds to the target brainwaves state. The second is isochronic tones, which use rhythmic pulses of sound at precise intervals to reinforce the entrainment effect. Together, these two technologies, calibrated with the precision of 3 decades of research, create an audio experience that guides the brain from its default alert and defensive state, the state that attack and stress create, into first theta and then gamma. Creativity, intuition, integration, breakthrough. And here is the detail that connects back to the practice I gave you in the previous section. The optimal duration for this entrainment process, the window that Dr. Rivers identified through testing as long enough to create measurable shift without creating fatigue, is 7 minutes. Exactly 7 minutes. This is not an arbitrary number. It reflects the specific timing required for the brain to complete the transition from alert beta, the defensive scanning state, through theta, the open creative state, and into the early signatures of gamma, the integration state. 7 minutes is the threshold. And what happens in the brain during those 7 minutes? When the audio is doing its work, mirrors precisely the kind of internal shift that the practice in Part 3 was designed to open you toward. This product is called the Genius Wave, and I want to tell you about someone who used it in a season that looked a great deal like yours. A woman in her mid-40s, a professional who had spent years building her credibility in a competitive field, found herself the target of a coordinated campaign of misrepresentation by a colleague who felt threatened by her advancement. Within months, she had lost a significant professional opportunity, damaged several key relationships, and found herself unable to access the quality of thinking that had always been her strongest asset. She described it as feeling like she was trying to think through water, slow, resistant, distorted. She began using the Genius Wave daily, 7 minutes each morning before she engaged with the world. Within 3 weeks, she noticed the first shift. Not a dramatic event, a quiet clarification. The water thinned. The thinking became less effortful. Within 2 months, she had not only rebuilt the professional relationships that had been damaged, she'd identified a direction for her work that she described as something she had always known was there, but had never been able to see clearly enough to move toward. The attack, she told Dr. Rivers, had actually been the thing that drove her to the tool that changed everything. I know some of you are sitting with a specific thought right now. You are thinking that $39 is not nothing, and you are right. It is not nothing. In a season where resources have been stretched, where the attack has cost you not just emotionally but financially, where the idea of spending money on yourself carries a weight of guilt or uncertainty that it did not carry before all of this started, $39 is a real consideration. I want to honor that. I am not going to minimize it or rush past it. What you are feeling about the cost is a valid response to a real constraint. And I also want to say this: the cost of remaining in the state that the attack has left you in, the cost of continuing to think through water, of continuing to operate at a fraction of the cognitive and creative capacity you were designed for, of continuing to let the frequency of stress and defense be the dominant frequency of your daily experience. That cost is measured in something more significant than money. It is measured in time, in opportunities that pass while your thinking is compromised, in relationships that suffer while your ability to be fully present is diminished, in purpose that waits while you are too exhausted from defending yourself to move toward what you were actually made for. The Genius Wave is normally priced at $49. Through the link in the pinned comment below this video, it is available today for $39. That price includes a 90-day money-back guarantee. Full, no conditions. If you use it for 90 days, and it does not shift something in your internal experience, you receive every dollar back. That is not a sales technique. That is the confidence of a researcher who spent 30 years on this work and knows what it does in the brain of a person who is ready to receive it. One more thing before I move forward. There are imitation versions of this product circulating in various places online. I need you to hear this clearly. The only safe and legitimate source for the Genius Wave is the single link in the pinned comment below this video. Not a similar link. Not a link from another source that claims to offer the same product. The pinned comment. That link is the only one I can stand behind, and it is the only one that carries the guarantee I just described to you. The frequency calibration in this audio is precise. An imitation version is not just ineffective. It is potentially counterproductive, introducing frequencies that are not calibrated to the theta-gamma transition, and that may reinforce the alert defensive state rather than releasing it. The window for this price is limited. The offer at $39 is not permanent, and the number of people who can access it at this rate in this period is finite. If something in you recognized itself in this message, if the frequency of what I have been describing resonates with something you already know about yourself, I want you to trust that recognition. The door is open right now, and the season of thinking through water has gone on long enough. Before we move forward, I want to stay here for a moment, because everything I just described, the science, the frequency, the tool, the door that is open right now, none of it means anything if we skip past what this season has actually cost you. And I am aware that in spaces like this one, there is a temptation to move quickly from the wound to the breakthrough, to acknowledge the pain briefly, and then pivot toward the promise, to treat the suffering as a footnote in a story whose real content is the victory. I am not going to do that to you today. because you have spent enough time in rooms where your pain was acknowledged only long enough to be redirected, where someone said, "I see that you are hurting," and then immediately handed you a scripture or a strategy or a silver lining, as if the hurt itself was an inconvenience to be managed rather than a reality to be honored. So I want to sit here with you for a few minutes, right here in the middle of what it has cost, not to keep you in the pain, but because the only way through it, honestly, is not around it. And the chosen ones who have been through what you have been through deserve someone who is willing to sit in the actual room with them before talking about the room that is coming. Let me be specific about what the years of this season have taken from you, not in general categories, in the specific textures of real loss that people in your position carry, but rarely name out loud because naming them feels like complaining, and you've been told in various ways by various people that complaining is not something a person of faith is supposed to do. But this is not complaining. This is honest accounting. And honest accounting of loss is the foundation on which genuine restoration is built. You cannot rebuild what you have not first been willing to fully see. The first thing this season took from you is relationships that could have been built, not the relationships that were destroyed by the attack, though those losses are real and we will honor them too, but the relationships that never had the chance to form because you were in a posture of guardedness when they arrived. The connections that approached you during this season and found a version of you that was not fully available. Not because you did not want connection, but because the wound had trained you to assess every new relationship for threat potential before allowing it to settle into genuine warmth. You met people during this season who, under different circumstances, under the circumstances that existed before someone decided to use your name as a weapon, would have become significant to you. And instead, they encountered the defended version of you, the measured version, the version that smiles at the right moments but does not fully let anyone in. And some of them moved on because they did not know that the guardedness was grief in disguise. They just experienced it as distance, and the relationship that might have been never became what it could have been. That is a real loss. It deserves to be named as one. The second thing this season took from you is the forward momentum of your vocation, your career, your calling, whatever form the work of your life takes. There were things you were building before the attack began, projects in progress, directions being pursued, a trajectory that, if it had been allowed to continue uninterrupted, would have placed you significantly further along by now than you currently are. And the attack interrupted that trajectory, not just by taking specific opportunities, though it may have done that too, but by redirecting your energy, by requiring you to suspend cognitive and emotional resources on defense and recovery that were supposed to be spent on creation and advancement. You cannot build forward when you are fighting for your reputation. You cannot invest in your future when your present is consuming everything you have just to stay intact. The momentum that was taken from you is not a small thing. It represents not just the ground you did not cover during the season of attack, but the compound interest of that ground, the things that would have grown from the things you did not get to plant. That is a layered loss, and it is valid. The third thing this season took from you is something more internal and perhaps more painful than either of the first two. It took your freedom to speak your dreams at full volume. Before the attack, you had a relationship with your own vision that was, if not fully confident, at least open. You could say out loud what you were working toward. You could share the size of what you were believing for without immediately bracing for the response. But when someone uses your ambition against you, when your vision becomes material for ridicule or weaponized as evidence of arrogance or delusion, you learn to hold it closer. You learn to speak it smaller. You learn to present a reduced version of what you are actually believing for, because the full version has been used to wound you, and you cannot afford another wound in that place. So you began to carry your largest dreams in silence. And the silence, while it protected you, also isolated you from the energy that comes from speaking a vision into shared space. Dreams that cannot be spoken, cannot receive the oxygen of community. And something in the size of what you were reaching for contracted slightly, quietly, without you quite noticing, until one day you realized that you could not remember the last time you told someone the full truth of what you were made for. The fourth thing this season took from you is something that people almost never name, but that I believe is the deepest loss of all. It took a portion of your faith in yourself, not your faith in God, though that may have been tested too, but your faith in your own perception, your confidence in your own ability to read people, to assess situations, to make decisions that are trustworthy. Because when someone attacks you using knowledge they gained through your trust, when someone uses access you gave them to build a case against you, you stop trusting the organ that gave them that access. You stop trusting your own discernment. And a person who does not trust their own discernment cannot move freely, cannot make decisions with confidence, cannot choose connections without second guessing, cannot follow intuition without immediately interrogating whether the intuition itself has been compromised. The self-doubt that the attack installed in you has been one of its most effective weapons, precisely because it turns your own mind into a source of resistance rather than a source of direction. I am not going to rush past these losses. I am not going to immediately hand you a reframe and tell you that everything was actually working for your good. Not yet, because there is a man named Joseph who understood what it means to sit in the middle of loss that is real and unresolved. A young man who carried a vision from God, who was given dreams that spoke of a significant future, and who was attacked not by strangers, but by the people who were supposed to be his community, his family, his protection. And what I want to tell you about Joseph is not the ending. Everyone tells you the ending. Everyone skips to the palace and the reconciliation and the redemption of the story. But I want to stay for a moment in the pit, in the actual experience of sitting at the bottom of a hole that people who knew you put you in, listening to their voices above you moving on with their lives, negotiating the terms of what to do with you as if your value was something they had the authority to determine. I want to stay in the years that followed, in the household of a man who was not his master and not his family, in the competence and faithfulness that Joseph maintained in a situation that was unjust, in the prison that followed the accusation of someone who lied about him, in the specific cruelty of doing everything right and still finding yourself behind bars because someone chose a false story over a true one. Joseph knew what it felt like to have his name used as a weapon. He knew what it felt like to watch the people who harmed him continue their lives without apparent consequence. He knew the specific weight of carrying a God-given vision in conditions that made that vision look laughable. He knew what it felt like to be forgotten by people who had promised to remember him, to do a kindness and receive not gratitude but silence, to wait in a place that had no visible exit for longer than anyone should have to wait. And I am not going to tell you today that Joseph's story was secretly fine the whole time. It was not fine. The pit was real. The years were real. The prison was real. The loss was real. And the God who ordained Joseph's ultimate destination did not protect him from any of those experiences. He sustained him through them. That is a different thing. Being sustained through something and being protected from it are not the same promise. And if you have been waiting for God to have protected you from the season you walk through, I want to gently tell you that the protection that was on your life during this season looked like sustaining, not shielding. It looked like you still standing at the end of it, still here, still reaching, still carrying the vision even in the reduced, protected, whispered form that the wound drove it into. That is not a small thing. That is everything. Because the vision survived the attack. You survived the attack. And a vision that survives an attack is not a wounded vision. It is a proven one. The fire that was intended to consume what you are carrying instead confirmed that what you are carrying cannot be consumed. Joseph's brothers thought they were erasing a dreamer. They were actually beginning the process that would bring the dream to its fullest expression. And the people who attacked your name, who thought they were finishing something when they came against you, were actually beginning something. They just do not know yet what they began. But heaven does, and heaven is not slow in its response to the blood of an innocent soul crying out for justice. Heaven is simply precise. And the precision of what is being prepared on your behalf is something that the next part of this message is going to begin to open for you. What Joseph could not see from the pit, and what you cannot fully see from inside the season you are standing in, is that the timeline of your story was never controlled by the people who attacked you. It looked like it was. It felt like it was. When the accusation landed, and the damage spread, and the relationships shifted, and the opportunities closed, it felt like the people who came against you had successfully redirected the story. Like they had taken the pen out of your hand and rewritten the next chapter in a language that diminished you. But there is something ancient and precise that I need to introduce to you today. Because without the right language for what is happening, you will continue to interpret this season through the framework your enemies gave you. And their framework is not the true one. The ancient Greeks had two entirely different words for time. Two words that carried two entirely different understandings of what time actually is and how it actually works. The first word was chronos. Chronos is the time you measure with a clock. It is sequential, linear, and indifferent. Chronos does not care who you are or what you are carrying. It moves at the same rate for everyone. Monday follows Sunday, regardless of whether Sunday was the worst day of your life or the most glorious. January becomes February whether you are ready or not. Chronos is the time your enemies were counting on when they attacked you. They calculated that enough chronos, enough clock, time passing with the damage unremedied and the accusation unchallenged would eventually settle the narrative in their favor. They understood that human attention is finite and that chronos works in favor of whoever controls the initial story, because the correction always arrives later than the wound and therefore carries less weight with most audiences. But the Greeks had a second word, kairos. And kairos is something entirely different. Kairos does not move at a steady rate. Kairos is not measured in minutes or months or years. Kairos is the word for the appointed moment, the precise intersection of preparation and opportunity, the specific instant when conditions align in a way that makes something possible that was not possible a moment before and will not be possible a moment after. The ancient Greeks used this word to describe the moment in archery when the wind shifts and the shot becomes possible. The moment in weaving when the threads align and the pattern can be set. The moment in navigation when the current turns and the ship can move in the direction it was always intended to go. Kairos is not a reward for effort. It is not something you earn by waiting long enough, or suffering enough, or being faithful enough. Kairos is an appointment. It was scheduled before the attack began. It was written into the architecture of your story before the people who came against you had any idea you existed. And I need you to hear this with your whole spirit, not just your mind. The season of attack did not delay your Kairos. It was not powerful enough to do that, because Kairos is not set by human hands. It is set by the same authority that set the stars in their courses and numbered the hairs on your head and knew your name before your parents had chosen it. The people who attacked you had access to your chronos. They could slow your visible momentum. They could damage your reputation in the short term. They could redirect your resources and your energy and your attention. But they had absolutely no access to your Kairos. They could not touch the appointed moment. They could not move the date. They could not cancel the arrival. They could only make the waiting feel longer than it was. And what I am telling you today is that the Kairos you have been waiting for, the appointed intersection of your preparation and your opportunity, the moment when heaven's schedule and your readiness finally meet, is not somewhere in a distant future that you can barely see from here. It is close enough that heaven is already giving you the signs of its approach. There is a second ancient concept I need to place in your hands today, because it speaks directly to what the years of this season have actually been doing in you, beneath the surface of the pain, in the places where the attack could not reach. In the Hebrew language, there is a word that is often translated into English as wait. The word is kava. And if you have been reading or hearing that word in the context of your season, if someone has encouraged you to wait on the Lord, to wait for the breakthrough, to wait for the vindication, I want to tell you what that word actually means in its original language, because the English translation has done you a disservice. The English word wait carries a connotation of passivity, of sitting still, of doing nothing while time passes and something outside of you eventually arrives. That is not what kava means. Kava comes from a root. That means to twist together, to braid, to intertwine multiple strands into something that is stronger than any single strand could be on its own. The image behind this word is a rope being made, and the process of making a rope is not passive. It is active, demanding precise work. You take individual strands, each one relatively fragile on its own, each one capable of being broken by a sharp enough force, and you twist them together with enough tension and enough consistency that the resulting structure becomes something that can bear weight that none of the individual strands could have carried alone. When the scripture uses the word kava in the context of waiting on God, it is not describing a person sitting still doing nothing. It is describing a person who is in the active process of being woven, who is in the middle of a braiding, whose individual strands of experience, of suffering, of patience, of faith, of loss, of survival, are being twisted together under tension to produce a strength that could not have been manufactured any other way. The years of your waiting, the years that felt like delay, the years that felt like punishment, the years during which you could not see what was being made, were not empty years. They were the years of the braiding. Every strand of pain that was added to you during this season, every experience of injustice, every night of crying out without visible response, every morning of getting up and moving forward when every instinct said to stop, was another strand being woven into what you are becoming. And what you are becoming is a person who can bear weight that would have destroyed the earlier version of you. A person whose strength is not the brittle kind that comes from never having been tested, but but the tensile kind that comes from being tested under real conditions and surviving. You are not delayed. You are being assembled. And the person who emerges from this braiding is not a wounded version of who you were before the attack. They are a version of you that the attack, paradoxically and painfully, and without its own intention, helped to create. The enemy came for your life and instead contributed to your formation. That is not the outcome they designed, but it is the outcome heaven authorized. Now I want to speak about something that connects the kairos and the kava into a single moment that I believe is very close to you. There is a concept in the prophetic tradition that speaks of a specific kind of revelation that arrives not at the beginning of suffering and not in the middle of it, but at the precise moment until suffering has completed its work. When the braiding is finished, when the appointed moment arrives. This is called the hour of revelation, and it is not a gradual dawning. It is not a slow brightening over many weeks and months where things gradually become clearer. The hour of revelation is precisely that, an hour, a moment, an arrival, the kind of thing that people who experience it describe not as a process but as a before and an after. A line they crossed, a door they walked through, after which nothing looked the same. In the hour of revelation, the chosen one does not simply receive good news. They receive understanding. They receive the why behind the what. Why the attack came when it did. Why the specific people who were involved. Why the last season lasted as long as it lasted. Why the preparation took the form it took. Hour of revelation is the moment when the map becomes visible after you have already walked the territory. When you can see, from the vantage point of where you are standing, that every detour, every delay, every painful redirection was not random. It was cartography. Someone was drawing a map in your life, and the map required you to walk every mile of the territory it describes before you could be trusted with the full picture. What was done to you in secret is about to be addressed in the open. What was said about you in rooms you were not in is about to be answered by a demonstration that no accusation can stand against. The people who built their case against your character are about to discover what it means to have built on ground that does not belong to them. Because you do not belong to them. Your name does not belong to them. Your story does not belong to them. The God who watched every moment of what they did with the access they were given to your life is not a God who files grievances and waits for a convenient moment. He is a God who moves at the appointed time, with the precision of someone who has been planning the response since before the attack was launched. The hour of revelation does not come to people who have avoided suffering. It comes to people who have walked through it without letting it define them. It comes to people who, in the middle of being accused, kept their character. Who, in the middle of being diminished, kept reaching. Who, in the middle of watching their attackers move freely, kept trusting a justice they could not yet see. It comes to people exactly like you, and when it comes, it does not arrive quietly. It arrives with the specific authority of heaven itself, asserting publicly what heaven has always known privately about who you are and what you carry. The final pain you have been walking through has a name. That name is not failure. That name is not punishment. That name is not the verdict of the people who spoke against you. The name of your final pain is calling. The deepest suffering of the chosen is always located at the exact edge of the purpose they were made for. Because the enemy does not attack what is small. He attacks what is significant. He attacks what will matter. He attacks what, if it reaches its destination, will undo the work of darkness in the lives of people he is not yet finished with. You were attacked because you are significant. You were attacked because what you carry matters. You were attacked because the enemy read your assignment before you did and decided that disruption was preferable to allowing you to arrive intact. But you arrived anyway. You are here anyway. And the hour of revelation that is approaching is going to make clear to everyone who has been watching your story, including the people who wrote the version that diminished you, exactly who heaven has always said you are. Something is shifting. You may not have the language for it yet, and you may not fully trust the feeling because this season has trained you to be cautious about hope, to hold anticipation at arm's length, because the last time you let yourself fully believe that something was about to change, the change did not come in the form you expected, and the disappointment cost you more than you had available to spend. So you have learned to feel the movement without fully naming it, to sense the approach without fully leaning into it, to stand at the edge of the threshold without committing your whole weight to the step. I understand that. That caution is not a character flaw. It is a reasonable response to a season that has required you to be careful with your hope. But I want to speak today to that thing you have been feeling and not fully naming, because it is real, and it is not wishful thinking. It is perception. Your spirit is picking up something that your mind has not yet given itself permission to fully receive. There are 3 specific areas of your life that are in the process of transformation right now, not in a distant future that requires several more seasons of preparation. Now, in the actual present moment of your life, beneath the surface of what is still visible and measurable, movement is already happening. And I want to name each area with enough specificity that you can begin to recognize the early signs of it. Because the changes that are coming are not all going to announce themselves with dramatic visible events. Some of them are going to begin so quietly that if you are not paying attention, if you are still looking for the attack rather than watching for the arrival, you will miss the first evidence that the tide has turned. The first area is the interior world, the landscape of your own mind, your own sense of self, your own relationship with your identity. Here is what is shifting. The voice that has been narrating your story in the language your attackers gave you is losing authority. You may not have noticed it yet because it is still speaking. It is still bringing up the accusations, still replaying the moments of injustice, still questioning your worth in the specific ways the attack trained it to question. But underneath that voice, something quieter and older and more fundamental is beginning to re-itself, a knowing that predates the attack, a sense of self that was present before the wound, and that the wound was never actually able to reach, though it got close enough that you were not always sure. That deeper knowing is becoming audible again, not loudly, not in a single dramatic moment of clarity, but in small, consistent ways. In the moment when you catch a glimpse of yourself in a mirror, and for a fraction of a second you see someone capable rather than someone compromised. In the moment when an idea arrives and your first response is curiosity rather than self-doubt. In the moment when someone asks for your opinion and you give it without immediately second-guessing whether you have the right to hold it. These are not small things. These are the first sounds of a voice that was silenced by the attack beginning to speak again. And as it grows stronger, as the interior narrative begins to return to the language of your true identity rather than the language of your accusers, everything else in your life will begin to reorganize itself around that restored center. The second area is the relational landscape around you. And this is the area where the changes are going to feel most visible, though not always most comfortable. Because the transformation that is coming in your relationships involves both an ending and a beginning. and both of them are happening simultaneously, and they can be disorienting to navigate when you are in the middle of them. The ending is this: people who were present in your life because of what you represented to them, because of what you could provide, or because your proximity was useful to their agenda, are in the process of departing. Some of them have already gone. Some of them are in the process of going, and you may be watching the distance grow with a grief that you are simultaneously not sure you have the right to feel, because you also know, somewhere honest inside yourself, that their leaving is a mercy. And some of them have not yet gone, but are about to, and their departure is going to feel like loss, even though it is actually clearance. Even though it is heaven removing from your immediate environment the relationships that were consuming resources your next season requires for something more significant. And into the space that is being cleared, new connections are already beginning to approach. Not the kind of connections that the attack created, relationships built on shared wound or mutual defense. These are different. These are people who carry something that resonates with what you carry. People who are moving in the direction you are moving. People who will not need you to explain the full context of your season before they understand what you have been through, because they have been through something similar, and recognition will happen between you quickly and without effort. Some of these people are already at the edge of your awareness. You have encountered them, but not yet allowed the connection to deepen because your guardedness is still active. But as the interior restoration continues, as the defended posture begins to soften, as you begin to trust your own discernment again, you will find that these connections deepen naturally, without the forcing that characterize some of your past relationships, without the constant assessment for threat, with the ease of people who belong in the same season of the same story. The third area is the territory of provision, opportunity, and resources. And this is the area that requires the most careful listening, because the provision that is coming in this new season is not going to arrive right through the channels that provision arrived through before. The attack closed some of those channels. Some of them were closed by your enemies, and some of them were closed by heaven, good channels that were leading you toward a destination that was not actually yours. And the new provision is going to come through paths that you have not previously used, through connections you have not previously had, through ideas that arise from the clarified thinking that the restored interior is producing, through opportunities that appear in the spaces that have been cleared by the departures I just described. What I need you to hear about this third area is something specific and important. You are not going to have to fight for what is coming. I want to say that again, because it is going to be difficult to believe, given how hard everything has required you to fight in this season. You are not going to have to fight for what is coming. The season of striving, of pushing against closed doors, of trying to manufacture outcomes through sheer force of effort is ending. What is approaching is not a reward for the fighting. It is a release from it. The God who watched the attack on your name, who witnessed every door that was closed against you through human manipulation and spiritual opposition, is not going to require you to claw your way back to the position you were removed from. He is going to restore it and add to it in a way that makes the restoration visible as restoration, in a way that makes it clear to everyone who has been watching your story that what happened to you was not the end of the story. It was the turning point. Now I want to speak to what you should not do during this period of emerging transition. Because the enemy who comes against the chosen knows that the most dangerous moment to attack is not during the season of suffering, when the person is braced and defended and has already developed survival mechanisms. The most dangerous moment to attack is during the transition, when hope begins to return, when the guardedness begins to soften, when the person is starting to lean into the new season without yet being fully established in it. That is the moment of maximum vulnerability. And the attack that comes during that transition does not look like the original attack. It does not come from the same direction or use the same tactics. The transition attack is subtler. It comes in the form of impatience, the temptation to rush the restoration because you have waited long enough and you are tired of waiting. And the first signs of movement make you want to push the door fully open before it's time. Resist the urge to force. What is appointed will arrive on time, and your forcing will not accelerate the kairos. It will only exhaust you in the final stretch. It comes in the form of distraction. New opportunities will appear during this transition that look significant but are not aligned with your actual destination. They will seem like the breakthrough, but they are not. They are tests of discernment. They are the enemy offering you something real but wrong, something that would redirect your arrival if you accepted it. The way to recognize these false openings is simple. The right door comes with peace, not excitement, not relief, not desperate gratitude of someone who has been waiting too long and will take anything that looks like a yes. Peace, a settled, quiet certainty that is different in texture from the anxious grasping that the transition can produce if you let impatience drive. And it comes in the form of premature disclosure, the temptation to tell too many people too soon about what you are sensing is coming, to share the signs of the approaching kairos before the kairos has fully arrived. Not because sharing is wrong, but because not every person in your current relational landscape is equipped to hold what you are carrying without either minimizing it or mishandling it. The vision needs to be spoken, but it needs to be spoken into the right spaces. Wait until new relational connections I described earlier are more established before you speak the full size of what you are believing for. The right people, when they arrive, will be able to hold it. If you can feel the truth of what I am describing right now, if something in this message is resonating with something you have been sensing but not been able to name, I want you to type the word "I receive" in the comments below, not as a performance, as a declaration of openness, as a statement to your own spirit that you are choosing to receive what heaven is releasing into this season of your life. Type it and mean it. Because the act of declaring your receptivity is not passive. It is the final preparation before the arrival. It is the act of opening your hands after a season of holding on. And what is about to be placed in those open hands is worth every moment of everything this season cost you to produce. The three areas I just described, the interior restoration, the relational clearance and arrival, the provision that comes without the fighting, they are not abstract promises. They are the specific geography of the season you are entering. And as you step into that geography, I want to give you something that belongs to you, something that has been waiting to be named. Because one of the things this season has taken from you, one of the losses we named earlier that cuts at the foundation, rather than the surface, is the loss of a clear sense of who you are after everything that has happened. The attack rewrote the narrative around your identity. It gave you names you did not choose. Names that were designed to diminish, to discredit, to reduce you to something manageable and dismissible. And even though you know intellectually that those names are not true, even though your spirit has been rejecting them since the moment they were applied, they have lingered. They have taken up residence in the background of your self-perception, in a way that has made it difficult to move forward with full confidence. So, before we go any further, I want to give you a name that is true. A name that was written for you before the attack, that survived the attack, and that is more accurate about who you are now than anything your enemies have ever said about you. Your name in this season is Cycle Breaker. I want to explain what that means with the full weight it deserves, because this is not a motivational label. It is a description of a specific function that you carry in the world and in the generations that come after you. A cycle breaker is someone who enters a lineage, a family system, a community, an institution, a pattern of behavior that has been repeating for longer than anyone currently alive can fully account for. And through their willingness to absorb the pain of the pattern, without passing it on, they interrupt it. They do not just survive the cycle. They end it. And the ending does not happen through dramatic action or visible confrontation. It happens through the accumulation of choices made in private, in the middle of pain, to respond differently than the pattern demands. Think about what you have done in this season. The attack that came against you was designed to produce a specific response. It was designed to produce bitterness that would close you off from future connection. It was designed to produce a cynicism that would make you treat everyone who approaches you as a potential threat. It was designed to produce a hardness that would make you incapable of the kind of open-hearted engagement that your purpose requires. It was designed, in short, to make you into someone who perpetuates the cycle of harm, because harm is what you have known, and you have refused that design. Not perfectly, not without struggle, not without moments when the bitterness was very close, and the cynicism was very appealing, and the hardness felt like the only reasonable response to an unreasonable situation. But you have refused it. Again and again, in the quiet moments when no one was watching, and no one would have blamed you for choosing differently, you have refused to become what was done to you. That refusal is the work of a cycle breaker, and it is some of the most significant work a human being can do in a lifetime. The cycle you are breaking is not just your own. It extends outward from your life into the lives of people who are connected to you in ways you may not yet fully see. People who are watching how you navigate this season and learning from your navigation that it is possible to be wounded without becoming a wound, that it is possible to be attacked without becoming an attacker, that it is possible to lose without becoming defined by the loss. The way you are moving through this, the specific quality of your endurance, is writing a new story in the territory of your influence. And that new story is going to outlive the season that produced it. Now I want to lead you through something. A visualization that is not an escape from reality, but a more accurate perception of it. A way of seeing where you actually are, not where the attack told you that you were. I want you to close your eyes if you are able, or soften your gaze and let the external world fall slightly out of focus. And I want you to picture yourself standing at a threshold, not a doorway in a building. A threshold in the truest sense of the word. The original meaning of that word refers to the place where grain was threshed, where the wheat was separated from the chaff, where the useful and enduring was distinguished from the temporary and the unnecessary. A threshold is not just a passageway. It is a place of transformation, and you are standing on one right now. Behind you, and I want you to look back for just a moment, not with the intention of returning there, but with the intention of seeing it clearly. Behind you is the territory you have walked through. See it honestly. The long stretches of difficult terrain, the places where the ground gave way unexpectedly beneath your feet, the places where the path narrowed so severely that you were not sure you could continue through it, without losing something essential. The places where you had to set down things you loved because carrying them while navigating the terrain would have been impossible. See the distance you have covered. See the conditions under which you covered it, and let yourself feel for just a moment the weight of having walked that far under those circumstances. You are not dramatizing it. You are seeing it accurately. It was hard. It was genuinely hard. And you walked it anyway. Now look forward, and I want you to notice something that may surprise you. The territory ahead of you does not look like the territory you just walked through. It does not have the same texture, the same weight, the same quality of resistance. The ground ahead is different. It is not perfect ground. It is not ground without any challenge or any complexity, but the specific quality of difficulty that characterized the season behind you is not present in the territory ahead. The ground ahead has the quality of appointed ground. Ground that was prepared for you. Ground that fits the particular shape of the feet that have been formed by the journey that brought you here. You were not shaped for ordinary ground. You were shaped by extraordinary terrain, and what lies ahead of you requires exactly the kind of person that the extraordinary terrain behind you produced. And now I want you to notice where you are standing. You are not still in the difficult territory behind you. You are not yet fully in the new territory ahead of you. You are standing exactly at the threshold. You are already there. You have already made it to the threshold. The journey behind you, every difficult mile of it, was the journey to this exact place. And this exact place is not a waiting room. It is not a preparation room. It is not a lobby for something that has not yet begun. Threshold is the arrival. Standing on it is the fulfillment of everything the journey was leading toward. You are not almost there. You are there. You are standing on the threshold right now in this moment, reading or hearing these words. And the step forward from this place is not a step into an unknown future. It is a step into the territory that was always yours. Let yourself stand on that threshold for a full breath. Feel the ground beneath your feet. Feel the difference in the air. Feel the specific quality of this moment, not as anticipation of something still coming, but as the actual experience of having arrived at the place where the arrival was always going to happen. This is not a metaphor. This is a spiritual reality that the visualization is helping your mind perceive what your spirit has already been experiencing. You are at the threshold, and the God who brought you here did not bring you this far to leave you standing on the outside of what He promised. Now, I want to speak a blessing over you. Not a general blessing, a specific one, shaped for the specific person who has made it to this threshold after the specific journey that brought you here. May the interior voice that was silenced by the attack find its full volume again, and may what it says about you be the truest thing you hear in every room you enter from this point forward. May every relationship that was damaged by the lies told about you be restored in a form that is stronger than it was before. And may the new connections that are coming find you open enough to receive them and discerning enough to know the difference between what is sent and what is simply offered. May the provision that is approaching you come without the striving that this season demanded, and may you learn in the new territory what it feels like to receive what belongs to you without having to fight for the right to have it. May the vision that you have been carrying in whispered form, the reduced version that you learned to speak in order to protect it from further attack, be restored to its full size. May you find the right people in the right spaces at the right moments to speak it into. And may the speaking of it at full volume feel not like exposure, but like homecoming. May the anger that heaven placed in you over the injustice of what done to your name be transformed, not into bitterness, but into the fierce and focused energy of someone who knows their worth so clearly that no future attack will find the same purchase. May it become fuel rather than weight. And may you walk forward from this threshold, knowing, in the deepest and most unshakable part of who you are, that the God who watched every moment of what was done to your name is the same God who is walking with you into every moment of what comes next. You are not alone on this threshold. You have never been alone, and the season ahead is going to make that so abundantly clear that you will look back at this moment, this exact moment of standing at the edge of the new territory, and you will know that this was the day the tide changed. Not just emotionally, not just spiritually, in every measurable, visible, practical area of your life. The tide is changing now, and you are standing exactly where you need to be to receive everything that the changing tide is bringing in. You are standing at the threshold, and the blessing that was just spoken over you is not a conclusion. It is a commissioning. Because standing at the threshold is one thing, and stepping through it is another. And the question that rises naturally in this moment, the question that a person who has been through what you have been through has every right to ask, is a practical one. Not a philosophical question about the nature of time or the meaning of suffering. Not a theological question about the character of God or the mechanics of divine justice. A practical question. What do I actually do right now? What are the specific, concrete, actionable steps that I take from this threshold into the new territory? Because you have had enough of beautiful language that does not connect to Monday morning. You have had enough of inspiration that dissipates by the time the alarm goes off and the ordinary demands of ordinary life reassert themselves. You want something you can hold, something you can carry into the actual texture of your actual days. And that is exactly what I want to give you now. Before I walk through the 3 areas of transformation with specific actions, I want to say something about the nature of action in this particular season. Because there is a kind of action that belongs to the season you are leaving, and there is a kind of action that belongs to the season you are entering. And the difference between them is not a difference in effort level. It is a difference in orientation. The action that belonged to the season you are leaving was defensive action. Action taken to protect what remained, to repair what was damaged, to prevent further loss. That kind of action is exhausting by nature because it is always reactive. It is always responding to something that has already happened. It is always trying to close a gap that someone else opened. And no matter how diligently you practiced it, it always felt like running to stay in place because the gap kept being reopened by forces outside your control. The action that belongs to the season you are entering is generative action. Action taken not to defend what you have, but to build what is coming. Action oriented toward the future rather than the past. Action that arises from clarity rather than from fear. And the distinction matters because generative action produces energy rather than consuming it. When you are doing the right thing in the right season, the work feeds you rather than drains you. Not because it is effortless, but because it is aligned. Because the effort is moving in the direction your design intended, rather than against the current of opposition. And as you step into the new territory, I want you to begin to notice when an action feels generative versus when it feels defensive, and to make the choice as often as you are able to prioritize the generative. Now, let me walk through the 3 areas with practical specificity. The first area is relationships, and the practical action here begins not with reaching out, but with assessment. Before you extend yourself into new connections or attempt to repair existing ones, I want you to take a quiet inventory of the relational landscape around you right now. Not a critical inventory, not an audit designed to find people guilty of something, but an honest one. For each significant relationship in your current life, I want you to ask one question. Does this relationship require me to be smaller than I actually am in order to maintain it? Not more humble, not more considerate, not more patient. Those are virtues, and they are not what I am describing, but smaller. Does this relationship require you to suppress the full expression of your vision, your personality, your gifts, your perspective, in order to keep the peace or maintain the connection? If the answer is yes, that relationship is a constraint on the new season rather than a resource for it. I am not telling you to immediately sever those connections. Wisdom operates with more nuance than that. But I am telling you to stop investing your primary relational energy in connections that require you to be less than you are. Begin instead to give your primary relational energy to the connections that feel expansive. The ones where you leave the conversation feeling more like yourself rather than less. The ones where your ideas are met with genuine curiosity rather than subtle competition. The ones where your struggle is held with real empathy rather than comparative minimization. Those connections are the ones that will sustain the new season. And as you begin to prioritize them, you will find that the other connections either transform in response to your changed energy, or they naturally reduce in intensity without requiring a dramatic confrontation. The right relationships for the new season will find you as you make space for them. Your job is simply to stop filling all the available space with connections that were designed for the season that is ending. The specific practical step for this week is this. Identify one person in your life who represents the quality of connection I just described. Someone in whose presence you feel most like the fullest version of yourself, and reach out to them, not with an agenda, not to process your season or to seek advice or to request support, simply to connect, to be present with someone who sees you accurately. That single act of choosing connection over isolation is one of the most significant things you can do at this threshold, because it tells your nervous system that the season of defended solitude is over, that you are safe enough to be again. And that signal, sent through the body and the relational field simultaneously, begins to reorganize the entire landscape around you. The second area is purpose. And the practical action here is the one that feels most elusive to people who have been through a season of attack. Because the attack often targets purpose specifically. It targets your confidence in your own direction. It targets your willingness to commit to a clear path when the last time you committed clearly to something, it was used against you. So I want to give you a very small and very specific action here, because the size of the action matters. Big action in the direction of purpose before the interior restoration is more fully established can feel overwhelming and can trigger the guardedness that is still present in the transition. Small action is different. Small action bypasses the defense mechanism because it does not feel threatening enough to activate it. The small action I want you to take in the area of purpose is this. Think of one thing, just one, that you know you are supposed to be doing but have not been doing because the attack created enough internal noise and enough external disruption that it fell away. Not the whole vision, not the complete expression of everything you are called to, just one thing, one practice, one creative act, one step in a direction you know is yours, one email you have been meaning to write, one idea you have been meaning to develop, one conversation you have been meaning to initiate, one skill you have been meaning to practice, Just one. And I want you to do it today. Not perfectly, not completely. Just begin it. Because the purpose that has been waiting for you does not require a grand re-entry. It requires a single genuine step. And the God who placed this purpose in you before the attack tried to take it from you will honor that single step with a clarity and a momentum that will surprise you with how quickly it builds. There is a specific quality to the way purpose answers in this season that I want you to be watching for. You have been asking, perhaps for years, what you are supposed to be doing. The question has felt large and unanswerable, because purpose in the season of attack is obscured by the noise of the attack. But as the noise reduces, as the interior restoration continues, you are going to find that the question begins to answer itself. Not through a dramatic revelation that arrives fully formed, but through a series of small clarities. A moment when something you read or hear lands with a recognition that goes deeper than intellectual interest. A moment when someone asks you to help with something, and you find yourself energized by the helping in a way that points towards something larger. A moment when an idea arrives that feels both completely new and completely familiar, as if it has been waiting in you for exactly this moment to surface. These small clarities are not random. They are the language of purpose reasserting itself in a mind that is becoming quiet enough to hear it again. Pay attention to them. Write them down. They are the breadcrumbs of your kairos. The third area is resources and provision, and the practical action here requires a shift in posture that may feel counterintuitive given everything this season has demanded of you. The posture I am describing is receptivity, open-handed receptivity, because the provision of the new season is not going to be forced into being by the same strategies that managed provision in the old season. It is going to arrive, and the primary practical action required of you is to position yourself to receive it rather than to manufacture it. What does that look like concretely? It looks like paying attention to what is already moving toward you, rather than exclusively focusing on what you are reaching toward. It looks like saying yes to unexpected invitations that align with the direction you are moving, even when the yes feels slightly premature, slightly ahead of where you currently are, slightly beyond the version of yourself that the attack left you feeling like. Because the provision of the new season is going to arrive at the size of who you are becoming, not the size of who the attack reduced you to. And you need to be willing to receive at that larger size, even before you fully feel like you inhabit it. Practically, this week I want you to do one thing in the area of provision. Identify one resource, one opportunity, one connection, one door that has presented itself to you recently and that you have been hesitating to pursue because some part of you is still operating from the scarcity and guardedness of the old season. And I want you to take one step toward it, not a committed, irreversible all-in step. Just one step of genuine engagement, one inquiry, one response to an email you have been leaving unread, one application, one conversation you have been postponing, one act of showing up for something that represents the size of what is coming rather than the size of what you are leaving behind. Because here is the truth about provision in the new season. The God who is defending your name and vindicating your character is also the God who owns every resource in every realm, and He is not stingy with people. He has assigned a significant purpose to. He is not going to bring you to the threshold and then require you to scrape and struggle for everything on the other side of it. What was taken from you in the season of attack, what was redirected, what was delayed, what was diminished is going to be returned in a form that reflects not just the original value, but the compound interest of the waiting. Restored, multiplied, positioned in your life in a way that makes its source unmistakable, so that when it arrives, and it is arriving, you will know beyond any internal argument that it did not come from your striving. It came from the hand of a God who was angry on your behalf, and who settles accounts with a precision and a thoroughness that leaves no question unanswered and no injustice unaddressed. Take the 3 steps: 1 relational reach, 1 purposeful act, 1 open hand toward provision. Do them this week. Do them imperfectly if that is what is available to you. Do them in the middle of the residual noise of the season that is ending. Because the season that is beginning does not wait for the old one to be completely resolved before it starts. It starts now, with 1 step, with 1 choice, with 1 act of living as if heaven's assessment of your life is more true than your attacker's version of it. Because it is. It always has been. And from this threshold forward, you are going to live in a way that reflects that truth. 1 day, 1 step, 1 open-handed act of trust at a time. You stayed. I want to begin there, because it is the most important thing that happened in this message, and it did not happen because of anything I said, or anything I offered, or anything that was described or promised in the sections that came before this one. It happened because something in you decided, before this message began and before you knew where it was going, that you were not finished, that there was still something worth reaching for, that the version of you that showed up today, wounded and guarded and cautious, and carrying more than anyone looking at your life from the outside would ever fully know, that version of you was still willing to sit in a space where something true might be spoken. And that willingness, that specific quality of not yet giving up that brought you here and kept you here through every section of this message, is not a small thing. It is not a minor detail in the story of your life. It is the defining characteristic of the chosen one in the season of vindication. You showed up, and heaven noticed. I want to say something to the part of you that almost did not show up. The part that has been through enough disappointment that another message, another promise, another voice, speaking into the wound, felt like a risk you were not sure you had the capacity to take. The part that has learned through real experience, rather than through cynicism, to be careful about what you let in. That part was not wrong to be cautious. That caution is the wisdom of someone who has been hurt by things that presented themselves as safe. But you came anyway. You let something in anyway. And I want to honor the courage of that, because it takes a specific kind of bravery to remain open after a season that gave you every rational reason to close. That bravery is not naive. It is not the bravery of someone who does not understand the risk. It is the bravery of someone who understands the risk completely and chooses openness anyway, because they know at the deepest level of their knowing that closing is not survival. Closing is a slower kind of ending. And you are not here to end. You are here to begin. I also want you to know something that I think you need to hear before we close. You are not alone in this room. I know it may feel that way. The specific texture of this season, the isolation that comes from being misrepresented, from carrying something that most people in your immediate environment cannot fully see or hold, from navigating a wound that is too complex to explain in the time that ordinary conversation allows. That isolation can make the room feel very small and very quiet. But right now, in this moment, all across the world, other chosen ones are sitting with this exact message. Other people who carry the same mark that you carry, the mark of someone who was targeted because they are significant, are hearing these same words in their own language of pain and longing and cautious hope. Other people who have been accused, diminished, misrepresented, and attacked by people who should have known better are sitting in their own version of this room, feeling their own version of what you are feeling, and discovering, as you are discovering, that they are not alone in it. You are part of a company of people who have been through the fire and emerged not destroyed but refined. And that company is larger and more present with you in this specific moment than you have any way of feeling from inside. Your individual experience of it. I want to give you one final exercise before we reach the end of this message. And this one is about laying something down, because you have been carrying a weight that was never meant to be a permanent fixture in your life. It was meant to be a season, a hard, real, significant season, but a season with an end. And the end is here. And part of crossing the threshold into what is next requires leaving something on this side of it. Not the lessons, not the strength that was braided into you, not the discernment that the attack sharpened. Those come with you. But the weight of the injustice itself, the carrying of what was done to your name, as if the carrying of it is somehow your responsibility, that needs to be set down here, at the threshold, before you step through. So I want you to do something right now. I want you to picture everything that has been said about you that was not true. Every accusation, every misrepresentation, every version of your name that was spoken in rooms you were not in by people who did not have the full truth. I want you to gather it all up, not to review it or to feel it again, but simply to collect it, to acknowledge that it exists, to acknowledge that it has been heavy. And then I want you to picture yourself placing it, gently and deliberately, at the threshold where you are standing, setting it down on the ground behind you, not throwing it, not destroying it, simply setting it down and stepping away from it, because it is not yours to carry anymore. The defense of your name has been transferred. It belongs to heaven now. And heaven is a more capable defender than you have ever been required to be. The God who is angry on your behalf does not need your help managing the injustice. He needs your hands free for what is coming. He needs your energy available for the new territory. He needs you to walk forward unencumbered by the weight of a case that he has already agreed to argue on your behalf. Set it down, step forward, and feel, even if only slightly, even if only in the body rather than in the full emotional register, the difference in weight. The threshold behind you holds what you left there, and what is ahead of you requires nothing of the old weight to navigate. Walk forward into it with whatever you have available right now. It is enough. You are enough. You always were. Now I want to speak about this community, about what it means to be here and what it means to support the work of getting these messages to the people who need them. Because I am aware that there is a version of this conversation where a request for support feels like a transaction, like a fee being charged at the end of something that presented itself as a gift. And I want to be honest with you about what the support actually does, because it is not about me, and it is not about this channel in any self-serving sense. It is about reach. Right now, there is someone sitting in their car, in a parking lot, not able to go home yet because the home not feel safe. And they are one video away from finding the language for what they are carrying. There is someone lying on the floor of their apartment at 2 in the morning, staring at the ceiling, who has not yet found the words that would tell them that what they are experiencing is not failure, but formation. There is someone who was attacked this week by people who should have protected them, and they are sitting in the specific silence of a person who has not yet found a voice that names their experience accurately. Those people are real, and the work of reaching them takes resources. It takes time and research and the sustained effort of creation that does not sustain itself without support. So if this message has been a lifeline for you today, If something here has named what you have been carrying and given you a framework that shifts how you understand your season, I want to gently ask you to consider giving. There is a donate option available, and whatever amount feels right and possible for you is an act of partnership in something much larger than either of us can see from here. When you give, you are not paying for what you received. You are funding what someone else is about to receive. You are becoming part of the delivery system. You are saying, with your resources, that this message deserves to reach further than it has already reached. And that is a generous and significant thing to do. If giving is not possible for you right now, there are other ways to be part of the reach. Like this video, the algorithm that determines how widely this message spreads responds to the simple act of a like, and every like is a vote that this content deserves a larger audience. Share it with one person, just one. Someone in your life who is in their own version of this season, who is carrying their own version of this weight, who would recognize themselves in what was said here today. You do not need to explain why you are sending it. Just send it, and let the message do what it was made to do. Subscribe if you are not already subscribed, because what is being built here is a body of content that is designed to accompany the chosen one through every phase of the journey. And what comes next in this series is something you will not want to navigate without. And before I close, I want to mention something one more time. Not as a sales moment, as a genuine acknowledgement. The genius wave came up in this message, not as an interruption of the spiritual content, but as an expression of the same truth the spiritual content is pointing toward. The truth that you were designed for a frequency that the attack has been interfering with, that the clarity and creativity and integrative thinking that are part of your design are not permanently compromised by what was done to you. That 7 minutes of intentional engagement with the right sound frequency can begin to restore access to the theta and gamma states that your purpose requires. If the genius wave found you somewhere in the middle of this message, if something in the description of what it does resonated with something you know your mind needs in this season, then it is waiting for you. The link is in the pinned comment below. The offer at $39 with the 90-day full money-back guarantee is there. And if it is a yes for you, trust that your discernment, which the attack tried to compromise, is already being restored, and recognizing what belongs to your new season is part of how you know the restoration is real. You came here today carrying something heavy. You are leaving here, I hope, carrying something different. Not lighter in the sense that the circumstances have changed, because circumstances change on their own timeline and not always in response to a single message. But lighter in the sense that the weight of the injustice has been set down at the threshold. Lighter in the sense that you have been named accurately. Lighter in the sense that the season you are in has been given a framework that makes it mean something different than what your enemies intended it to mean. You are a cycle breaker. You are a chosen one. You are a person whose name is being defended by a God who does not overlook the blood of an innocent soul crying out for justice. And the season of that defense is not coming. It is here. It is now. Walk into it. You did not arrive here by accident. Whatever path brought you to this message today, whatever detour or delay or desperate search or quiet prompting led you to press play, that arrival was not random. You were guided here by something older than the algorithm, by something more precise than coincidence, by the same authority that has been managing your story since Fox Before's the first attack was ever launched against your name. So before you close this and return to the world, I want to leave one thing with you. Not information, not instruction, just a mark. The kind that stays, you are seen. Not the managed version of you that the world gets to witness. The real one. The one that exists in the space between the composed exterior and the honest interior. The one that has been hurt in ways that still have not fully healed and is still reaching anyway. That one is seen completely. By the one whose seeing actually matters, you are known. Your name as it truly is, not the enemies spoke, not the version your wound whispers in the difficult hours, but the original name, the one written before the attack and surviving after it, is known. And it is good. You are held in this moment and in every moment that follows this one, in the threshold and in the new territory, in the days when the restoration is visible and in the days when it is still hidden below the surface of what you can see. You are held by hands that do not tire and do not let go. Go carry that. It is enough for everything that comes next. That is the truth about you, and it always has been.